Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the show, the Pleasure Points Podcast. I'm your host, James Rohr. I am an acupuncturist, a dating coach, a guy out here just trying to spread the love. Today's show is the second half of my transition out of New York. So if you missed last week's episode, I have decided to move on from my acupuncture office in Brooklyn, and I'm moving down to Miami to join my fiance down there, creating hopefully more channeling content for you guys, adding to the podcast, growing the coaching business, helping also spread the love with the doTERRA essential oils. So today's guest is Jennifer Sawyer. She is the wife of the husband and wife team that are taking over the reins at Acupuncture Williamsburg. And we had a great conversation. She is amazing, powerhouse, full of love, helping to bring people back to the heart, to center themselves. I had to really enjoy my conversation. We got into some of the nuances of the particular style of acupuncture that they practice. And I just find that the way that they move through the world to be so fascinating. And Jennifer and I had some interesting similarities with our upbringing and the schools that we went to, and navigating, connecting with your purpose and destiny when society might have other plans for you. So I hope you enjoy the show as much as I did. To connect with Jennifer, you can do that at acupuncturewilliamsburg.com. If you're in the Brooklyn, New York area, certainly reach out to them and book a session. You can't go wrong there. So without any further ado, welcome to the show, Jennifer Sawyer. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here.
So you are part of the husband and wife team that's been taking over the office here in New York. I'm super excited.
We are extremely excited as well.
One of the things that I got a kind of a kick out of when I was getting to know you was that you and I both went to very prestigious undergrads. And then you, I thought I was rebellious going straight from Stanford to acupuncture school, but you actually dropped out of the prestigious college.
After my third year, I was
you were so close, and you were just like, I can't do it.
No, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to come to New York and be a photographer, and I was like, I don't know why I'm getting this degree. I don't think it's going to help me in the art world, and I left.
She went to Cornell, folks.
Yes, I did.
What were you studying there, Cornell?
I was studying film and photography. Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about, I'm curious, how did that land, with your parents in your inner circle when you were just I'm not going back. I'm not going to Ithaca. I'm going to Manhattan.
I think, my parents are definitely kind of reserved and quiet, and they just sort of in some ways let me do my own thing. So they didn't really say a whole lot. I think they maybe hoped that I would go back later. Other of their friends were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just needed to follow my heart. My dad, he would have been thrilled if I was an artist. That would have been awesome for him. So he kept trying to support me any which way that he could in terms of do you want to open up a darkroom? Do you want to do this? And I wasn't sure, but I just kept, working for artists and being in that field and doing black and white prints. I loved working in the darkroom. It was really good for me for several years.
Did you identify that act of not going back for your senior year as an act of courage?
I think it was more for me an act of following my heart. It was an act of really knowing that this place was sort of killing me on the inside. I was starting to, Cornell, they teach you how to overanalyze everything, everything. And I was starting to overanalyze myself and kind of making myself a little crazy, actually. And I just knew in my heart that this just was not right for me anymore. And whenever that feeling is strong, I follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have instances when you were younger where you were following that, or was that your first kind of big decision like that?
That was before then. I think I was kind of I kept trying to fit myself into the boxes that I thought other people were putting me in. And so this was a real breakaway point for me to just fully step away from everything I thought everyone else wanted me to be and start committing to myself and my own path.
Yeah. That's awesome. Reminds me of when I told my dad I was going to acupuncture school, and he goes, "Who in the hell goes from Stanford to acupuncture school?" And then when I graduated acupuncture school, my dad gave me one of the sort of sincerest toasts that I'd ever heard, where he was just like, "I don't know what you've been doing here the last 4 years. I don't know what you've learned, but you seem to have done a good job. So here's to you."
Well, I think parents, they want to see their children happy and thriving and doing well for the most part. So I think, as long as we don't seem like we're totally lost and floundering, but there's like some sort of direction.
Yeah.
Or at least my parents anyway, they can get behind that.
So then you were doing the art stuff in Manhattan, and then you decided to go out to Colorado.
Yes. So again, it was another heart experience. The art world in New York can be very cruel and harsh. And even though I loved the work that I was doing, the community it's kind of sad. I wish that it was a more supportive and loving community than it is. I think it would change the whole art world if that were the case. And not to say that there aren't artists where that is the case, but New York is definitely a bit of a harsh scene. And it was getting to me, and my heart was like, no, this has to change now. Like, it was good then, it's not anymore. And so I just asked myself, if I could do anything, if I could go anywhere, what would I do? And Naropa, which is a Buddhist university in Boulder, Colorado, is what was like, go finish your degree there. So off I went, packed my bags, off to Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah.
Naropa's got to be like as far away from Cornell as you could get on the ideological spectrum.
I would 100% agree with that. Went from overanalyzing everything to experiential. Like, what is your experience? How does this flow? What is it, your relationship to all these, your experience? What is your experience of yourself? What is your experience of others? How do you sit in a space and actually deeply listen to yourself and then also to other people? How can you hold this space for yourself and for others? And I learned all kinds of things about like boundaries, stuff that, I don't know, growing up in New York City, they don't really teach you like emotional boundaries and emotional maturity. What does it mean to be an emotionally mature adult person? How do you interact with people in a way that is clean and feels good and nurturing, And how do you know how to say no in all of its variety, or yes in all of its variety? Those kind of things were definitely some major life lessons that I learned at Naropa.
Yeah, that's way more valuable than whatever the kind of imposter syndrome stuff that can happen. It's like you went from radical overthinking to like radical acceptance.
That is a very good way to put it, because that was very much my experience.
Yeah. And so how long after Naropa did you enroll in acupuncture school?
I spent 2 years after I graduated working with adults with developmental disabilities. And that was really wonderful. I worked with a lot of people with pretty severe behavioral issues, and I learned some more boundary stuff. Really, that was a huge lesson for me. And I kind of was continuing to study the psychology of the 5 elements at that point, with continuing my work with teachers. And it just came really strong again, that heart pull. I was like, nope, you need to go to school now.
Wow.
I was considering putting it off for a couple of years, but I was like, no. And then I went to school, and they sat me right next to my husband the very first day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is that feeling, how does it occur to you, that calling to not go to Cornell or to start acupuncture school right away? Is it a feeling? Is it a voice that you hear? Is it what's that sort of sensory experience like for you?
So I think normally, there's a lot of chatter in the head, a lot of, just different thoughts and feelings. But when this happens, it's like everything gets very quiet, and the voice is just really strong in my heart. It's just a pull from my heart. It opens. My body opens, the back of my heart opens, the front of my heart opens, and everything gets still and quiet, and I just know. That's the sense.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that I talk about with a lot of my clients, and I use with myself too, which is when I'm thinking about what to do, I'll say, does my energy expand or does it contract?
Yeah.
And that's how I got to acupuncture school. For me, was I made a list of like all the things that I wanted to do, and acupuncture school was at the bottom of the list because I didn't really want to go to more school. But when I got to that on the list, I noticed that I immediately took a deep breath. My shoulders relaxed, everything softened. And it was just this like physiological response that I couldn't ignore. And then even thinking about moving, part of why my fiance's name is Jennifer, part of why Jennifer and I still live in two different places is because we were waiting for like the energy to kind of speak to us one way or the other. What I knew for sure is that when she's here in New York, her energy contracts.
No, not so great.
And so I was just like, all right, what are we going to do with this, And then we started talking about, maybe I could move down there and, get good people in for the office up here and all that stuff. And then I noticed my energy started to expand, and I think that kind of, that attunement to the physiological state, especially when making big decisions, is huge.
Yeah, I think because you can think yourself till you're blue in the face and you will not have any clearer of an answer. And if you can really sink into that heart, and sometimes what my heart tells me is you need to wait. It's not time yet. Wait. And so I have to listen to that as well, even though sometimes I really don't want to. I want to go jump into whatever's next, you know? But I just have so much faith that this is going to lead me where I need to be, and that this will be the most opening and the easiest and the best path. Yeah.
I suspect that part of the prevalence of thyroid disorders right now is because there's this inability to drop from a head space into the heart space. And that, the energy that should sort of be free flowing gets blocked there in the throat, right? Which is a lot of judgment, and how do you, what are you saying about others? What are you saying about yourself, and all of that? But it's like so much of this overthinking and head heavy consciousness, and that engaging in the work of connecting with the heart is like, it's the most valuable thing.
Yeah. And I'm a Sufi, and from the Sufi tradition, we work really strongly with having the mind and the third eye surrender to the heart, because then it's in service of the heart, and it's not that, it's good to have a strong mind. It's good to be able to think and to be able to use all of that. But if it's not surrendered to the heart, it leads you astray.
And in Chinese medicine, they talk about the brain as like a curious organ, right? It's not even, it's not prioritized like we have it. It's like the heart is the emperor. It's the place. Yeah. And can you talk a little bit more? I know we spoke a couple days ago about it, but about the Sufi tradition and the role that has in your life and as a healer.
Yeah. So actually growing up, we didn't have any religion. And then I found Buddhism, and that's kind of part of what led me to Naropa. But then I met my husband, and he introduced me to Sufism. And Sufism is the mystic tradition of Islam, and it's a path of opening the heart and being in deep service to what the divine wants to bring through you. And, and seeing the opening in the hearts of other people, that we're all part of the same. And so when I heal you, I heal myself, and that's why I love acupuncture, because it really offers me that opportunity for us both to heal, and for us both to grow, and for us both to manifest the gifts that we have been given into this world more fully.
That's so beautiful. It's been interesting saying goodbye to my patients here in this last week, because the feeling that the image that keeps coming to my mind is this, like, with each one of them, I've been in a boat.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like each one, it's like we've been rowing this particular boat, and there's been a journey that we've been on together. And, I suppose technically I've been like the healer, but, no, it's like, no, we've been on this journey together, and it's such a beautiful thing. It's moving. It's humbling.
It is humbling, and it's so touching and just beautiful. And I think that's part of the reason why we really were excited to come into your practice, because of all that heart and because of all that love.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would also imagine too that just your artistic sensibilities, acupuncture is like the greatest.
Oh, it's so awesome. It really is.
Because there's just so much freedom and flexibility, right? I mean, you get to do
so
what
much
you want
creativity too. I mean, you get to, and that's the thing about the 5-element acupuncture in particular, right? Because someone can be a wood constitution, but there's like, how many plants are there in this world? That's how many wood constitutions there are, you know? How many different types of flames could there be? Types of fire, types of air, you know, you get to, it's so creative. You get to know people in these different ways and like, you know, what's the best kind of earth for a vine versus what's kind of the best kind of earth for a giant tree or, you know, different things like that. And then you kind of learn the points and how they manifest in different people. And it's just, it's so creative and so beautiful.
And one of the things that I love about the 5-element tradition, I mean, I sort of get a 5-element love fest with Bart when he was on, but you know, I'm just such a firm believer that if people are trying to make changes in their lives, paying attention to the environment that they create around themselves is just paramount.
Yes.
You know, like the Marie Kondo, like all that stuff is really popular right now. You go through your stuff and throw things away and whatever. But it's like, what are you watching? What are you eating? What are you consuming?
Yep.
You know, and that having that dexterity and that willingness to look at all the facets of your external environment as, you know, that this is the soil in which you were trying to grow.
Yeah.
And with the 5-element style in particular, how you guys honor the seasons, you know, you honor this, like the environment internally in a way that I think TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and what I studied is kind of lacking a little bit in its formal education.
Yeah, it could definitely be a bit stronger. Yeah, we look at, you know, not only how do the seasons flow within a person, but how are they, and then kind of trying to bring the deepest note of those seasons within someone. So yes, you're a wood CF, but you're living in a fire environment right now because it's summer.
Right.
How do we bring that note of fire and wood? You know, how do we help that manifest, you know, shake off all the ashes, shake off all the stuff that doesn't matter, and let that wood really come out into fire so it's can fully bloom, you know, and take full advantage. And I guess, you know, this kind of comes into the preventative medicine aspect of this medicine as well, because the goal in our practice is actually to get everyone to come in 5 times a year with the change of this each and every season for a seasonal adjustment.
Yeah, that's the path that I was using with my 5-element practitioner most recently. You know, fortunately, I've been feeling really good, and so I didn't feel like I needed the once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever. And what I loved about the 5-element style too is like the goal is to get you to the place where you need the seasonal tune-up. You know, it's not to have you come in like every week.
Only when things are not going so great.
Right, or when you're first starting, you know, and you have to tend to the adjustment. And just like if you were going to start a garden, you know, it's like you wouldn't just like throw it down once and leave it. You know, you got to tend it, you got to nurture it, and all of that. And so let's talk a little bit about the aggressive energy, because we're talking about creating a nice environment in the body. This is one of my like favorite treatments, and this is, I actually will do AE treatments on my clients because I just think that it's like, I'll tell you a story, but why don't you explain what AE is and how that looks?
Okay, so aggressive energy, basically we get energy from our environment, and sometimes we're getting energy that's not really ours, and it gets into our channels and it kind of gunks things up. It's like the city can kind of get under your skin, or someone else is angry and it kind of gets under your skin, and then your shoulders get kind of tight and you can get slightly irritated, and it's this energy, it's not really yours, and it just kind of makes you feel bad. And what's beautiful about this treatment is you come in and you get these needles put in your back very superficially, and it drains that aggressive energy right out, and you feel like yourself again, and you're like, wow, I can't believe how different I felt before and after this treatment.
Yeah. I remember when I must have been in like the first 2 or 3 months of my private practice. And so they don't teach aggressive energy at the school that I went to, but I'd been treated by a 5-element practitioner for a while. And so I was reading on my own and stuff. And I remember I had this one client who she came in, her like energy was pretty loud. Everything was just sort of really loud about her, but her pulses were super deficient. Oh, no. And I ignored what the pulses were telling me. I treated her based on what she said was going on, and no surprise, after 3 treatments, like nothing was happening. And so I was like, well, I'll try this AE treatment, right? And so I put the aggressive energy in. There was like explosions of red all around the needles. And so I waited, it took, 40 minutes or something for it to fully clear. And about 35 minutes into it, she just started bawling on the table.
Oh, yeah, because it's such a relief to get that energy cleared out because it's not yours.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
And it blocks treatment too. Like that's a block to treatment. So if that is there and you don't clear it, it's really hard for other treatments to work effectively.
Right. And what I've seen is that like, even if you get a little change, it's not sustainable. It's like you got to clear the AE.
Yeah, you do.
And so for a long time, I would do that with every new patient, in part because the needling is so gentle.
Yeah.
And they're face down. So for clients that were freaked out about the needles and stuff, it's just like, this is great, Mm-hmm. But that woman, like, so I remember she was crying. And then when she got up, like all that redness in her face, like balanced out. She just didn't look hot anymore. She didn't look inflamed and just like, toxic.
Toxic, yeah.
But I was so new in the practice, I didn't know it until it was gone, where I was like, oh yeah, you didn't look right.
That's one of the things that's also amazing about acupuncture is you give people treatments and their whole face shifts. It changes, it brightens. All of a sudden there's a light coming out of their eyes. I mean, it's just pretty phenomenal.
So let's talk about one of my other things that the thing that I'm probably the most envious about when I talk to 5-element practitioners is your ability the sensitivity in the pulse to feel entry-exit blocks.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, entry-exit blocks, I mean, you can feel there'll be like a lot of buildup in one pulse and nothing in the other pulse. It's kind of like a hose that gets kinked. So
let's set it up for them. So we've got, you're feeling the pulse on both wrists, right, at different levels.
Yes.
And those are related to...
So if you're feeling like you'll feel... the meridians all connect to each other, right? You can kind of think of it like a hose, right? So like the small intestine meridian connects to the bladder meridian in the face. Mm-hmm. And so when you're feeling the pulses, you can feel the bladder meridian and the small intestine meridian at the same time. And you will feel that there's like a buildup of energy and then no energy in the other pulse. Mm-hmm. And that is what we call a block. You can have them mainly in the head or in the chest. And they have really strong emotional components that go with them. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a bunch of chest blocks, you're probably feeling pretty wretched. You feel like you're drowning. You feel like there's no way you can do anything. And it's because you can't get a good breath. You can't get a good breath. You can't receive inspiration into your lungs when you have chest blocks. Your joy is blocked. Your ability to connect with other people is blocked. And then we put those needles in, we open them up, and then all of a sudden you can breathe again. All of a sudden you're like, maybe this isn't so impossible.
And it is, in my experience, like instantaneous. It's the clearing of the entry-exit block is probably the most instantaneous shift I've ever felt with acupuncture. Like that particular thing, it is immediate. The deep breath, the change in clarity in the eyes. I've had it where it's like all of a sudden I can see in HD where before things were kind of cloudy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. And emotionally it changes things really quick too, which is what I really love about that, is that people come in feeling horrible and they leave feeling so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the renewal of optimism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah, because before it's like the gate of hope gets closed and we don't have any hope. There's no way we can see a way forward. We're blinded, and then we burst open these blocks and suddenly there's possibility again.
Yeah. And then there's the I know a lot of people I talk to, if they have insomnia, they're waking up right at like 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3:15, and that's a classic sign of another block.
Oh yeah, the 8-9 block. Yep, that's the gate of hope and the being able to receive the heavens, being able to receive the inspiration, being able to manifest your hope and your vision and your love into this world. And we open this block and you can take the divine breath. It comes in and you can have the vision of like, how am I going to live my life? How am I going to manifest? And at night when you're getting stuck and if this is blocked and you're waking up a lot at night, it's like your body's way of trying to tell you like, hey, there's this block here. That's the time of the liver and the lung and it's getting kinked. Like, wake up. This is a spiritual time as well. Like the middle of the night is a time where a lot of people are up doing prayers. So it's also kind of trying to get you into like, hey, wake up. There's something going on here. We need to do some work. We need to do some prayers. We need to open this. Like,
interesting. So are you saying that there's kind of this like collective consciousness that you might be sensing at nighttime?
It is definitely possible. Everyone who I've had as a patient who has insomnia, who's waking up around that transition between liver time into lung or metal time, wood into metal time, I recommend highly that they do either, meditation or prayers or any kind of spiritual practice that speaks to them at that point. We also will do acupuncture and herbs to support them, but I believe there's something coming in for them, So
would you suggest that they do that before they go to bed, or if they find themselves awaking at that time, instead of just complaining that they didn't sleep through the night, to just get up and start praying?
Just get up and start praying. Get up and start praying, or doing your meditation, or whatever it is.
Sure.
You can doing it at other times. I'm sure definitely can also be very beneficial. But if you're waking up at that time, don't just and you're having a hard time getting back to sleep. Don't just sit there and spin your wheels. Do the work.
Yeah. Awesome. And speaking of the work, part of your work is something that I don't know much about, which is this core synchronicity. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So core synchronism, I learned that at the same time as acupuncture school. I would fly back to Colorado and study with my teacher, Alexander Love. It's sort of similar to cranial sacral. It works with the chakra system. I like it because it's a slightly different approach than acupuncture. It's more on the Ayurvedic side of things. And, we do a lot of work with synchronizing the different parts of the body. What I've learned from Core Sync is that, we'll have different traumas, emotional, physical, different kinds of traumas, and those get fixed in the body somehow. And what Core does is it helps the body to release those traumas by allowing you come into that place, like the body's whatever particular movements or setup during when the trauma happened, and then you hold it until and it starts to relax and release it. It's sort of like muscle memory. We can have muscle memory like playing the piano, but you can also have muscle memory of a traumatic situation. And this really helps to release that trauma in a very undramatic way. You don't have to process the whole thing. You can just relax and let it go. So
if somebody got punched in the gut and doubled over, would you have them start in that kind of doubled over position?
Not necessarily, but what I would do is I would come and I would sit with that part of their body and just be with it. And usually they'll, if they were punched in the gut, maybe their fire chakra went out of synchronization, right? And so I'm going to hold it there. Oftentimes people fall asleep when they're going through this again. And then, so I'm going to hold it until it comes back into synchronization with the rest of the body, with the primal energy.
And what does that feel like for you when it's in sync?
So with the chakras, there's a spin. They're supposed to spin a specific direction.
Sure.
So first I look for the spin, make sure it's spinning correctly on the front and on the back. And then there's also the cores. They move throughout the body in many different ways, but I'll be looking for the anterior posterior cores and seeing how that, if the chakra is lining up with those cores. And then all the cores throughout this field, are they all moving in synchronization with each other? Oftentimes sometimes there'll be parts that are moving up while the other parts are moving down. And then you just hold it in a pause and then wait for the other ones to come down, and then they sync and they do all kinds of micro shifting. And then it relaxes, and then you go and it goes into a closing phase, and you hold it in the closing phase. It does all kinds of other shifting, and then it goes back and forth. Sometimes you have to add a couple different parts of the body to really get it to sync well. And then once you have all of the cores synchronized pretty well, you can start bringing in different things like this person's relationship to time, and then the body will go completely out in terms of how they relate to time, and then you just hold it and it comes back in.
Are you verbally speaking?
I'm saying it
or you're in your
my
head?
In my head, yeah.
And when you're sensing the spin of the chakras, is that a feeling in your palm, or is it a visual experience for you?
I kind of feel and see them. There's like certain things that I'll see that happens with it, but in my class, everyone has different acuities, right? So like certain people it's more of a felt sense, other people it's more visual sense. Like people have different ways that they would feel that. Yeah,
that's so cool. I think I've been I maybe everyone who's like kind of in the healing world is doing some sort of iteration of something like that. We're looking for kind of harmony, It's nice though to have that whole system. I've always just kind of chosen to I like to experience first and then learn about it later.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm like, well, I've experienced it, I don't need to learn more about it. But I remember early on in my practice too, this one client was she was experiencing some grief and some heartache, and I remember I looked at her and her heart chakra was spinning backwards.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. And so I did some acupuncture points, and I put my, actually it was at her feet. I do a lot of work on the feet, just kind of like, I love holding kidney 1.
Oh, it's
right.
Great.
So I do that with like a lot of my clients, and it's a great, and in the office, I set it up so that the wall behind them is blank. Because a lot of times I'll hold the kidney 1, and I'm there, like my intention when I'm there is just to read the chi. It's like it's just to see. Because in Chinese medicine, what I realized as I started doing this, I actually stole it from another practitioner, but what I realized is that most of the TCM views of the body are from the side. Feeling the pulse, looking at the tongue. But there isn't that moment where you just sort of like, if you were to look at a painting, where you're like really head on. I mean, when you're doing the intake, perhaps once you're on a table, it's like, it's all very side heavy. So I've learned I like to hold kidney 1, and then sometimes like behind them on the blank wall, it'll just be like images that start to pop up for me, or I'll just get a sense of like the chakra spin. So it's holding kidney 1, and it was like spinning backwards, and then I put the needles in, and then it started to like stop, and then I went over and held her head, and I put my hand like over her chest, and as soon as I started to feel and see that it was spinning, it was like 2 seconds after that, just tears.
Yeah,
it's just a huge thing, and it was like again she could breathe again.
Yeah, see, because there's all these like patterns that we can hold in our body and get stuck, and really I think what most of these patterns need is just someone to hold them with love, to just be there with a loving hand, and I see you, I hear you, I feel you.
Yeah. The power, I was talking to Bart about it too, just the power of being a witness.
Yeah. It's huge.
It's everything. I mean, I think that is the healing.
Yeah.
It's just like, I see you.
I see you.
We're here. We're in the boat together.
We're here. We're in the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are your ideal clients? Like, who do you love to work with? What really lights you up?
I really love working with people who really want to do this deep work, who want to do this spiritual work, who are open to like really going on some deep dives and, really want to move through things and bring out their gifts into this world, Those are some of my favorite people. But I honestly love working with whoever the divine brings me, I really see everyone as a manifestation of the divine. And if you're coming into my life, you're coming into my life for a reason. And I really honor and treasure that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like supporting women through pregnancy and the early phases of motherhood too.
Oh yes, I love that transition. I am a mom of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and becoming a new mom is a huge transition. Like, I feel like you sort of like who you were before you have kids kind of goes out the door a little bit, and you just become like very big and spacious in a way that's, I don't know, it's never happened in any other point in my life. And it takes it's a bit of a transition and it's a little bit strange because you don't really know who you are yet. It's like coming in. And so there's all these amazing shifts and so much support and love for that phase and the transition. Yeah.
When my ex was pregnant with our son, it looked to me energetically like she was just plugged in to something.
Yeah, it's just
the alien mothership or something. I mean,
yeah, there's so much light that just comes in, and our relationship to that light has a huge effect on how we do in those first, few months of having a baby as well,
Right. And a huge change in identity, right?
A huge change in identity, yeah. And it takes a while for that to, because like I said, it's hard thing to like really explain well with words, but it's almost like you kind of, your identity just sort of really expands very wide. And so there's a lot of things that just kind of float away, and things that you thought you were, you're not really anymore, but you're not entirely sure who you are yet. And so it can be a little disconcerting for some people.
Right.
But there's amazing things you can do with acupuncture to really support you through that transition.
And, certainly something that I certainly experienced in the marriage also is this, like, the identities within the family, and, where's the sort of the stable footing, especially when you're sleep deprived and, suffering, and hopefully the baby's healthy, but if they're not, that's like a whole thing too. And it's so often overlooked. I remember I heard this woman who was talking about, she goes, everybody loves to hold the door open for a pregnant lady. She goes, but I'm not sick, I'm not disabled, I can hold the door open. She goes, I really need the help when my kid is in the stroller. And she goes, and no one wants to do anything for you when you're pushing a stroller. They look at you and it's like, well, you got yourself into this mess, good luck.
Oh, goodness.
But it's, there's definitely, I mean, from the male perspective, I just look at it in awe.
Yeah, well, and there's so much support that women really need postpartum as well, physically, A lot of times, the uterus doesn't behave in the same way as it did before, and there can be issues with that, and those are things that I can work really well on. Or if you have a C-section scar, that can really block the flow of energy through your body, making you more tired than you already are. And those are things that we can really treat with acupuncture in a very effective way.
What about, I know that there's a lot of listeners here that are either on birth control or thinking about getting off of it. Do you have any sort of insights or anecdotes about the process of getting off of birth control and how acupuncture can help?
Yeah, so Chinese medicine the character for Chinese medicine is actually has dancing female shaman in it. So this medicine was really created by women and has thousands of years of, research and treatments that are very effective for women's health and women's reproductive cycle. And so coming off of birth control can mean very many different things for very many different people. And so the beauty about Chinese medicine is that we diagnose in a way that it's very specific to you and what's happening with you and your period and your hormone cycle. We can treat, we adjust the treatments based on how you are doing and what this is looking like for you. It's very individuated. We give herbs or we can do vaginal steaming. These are all things that can really help with fertility, with coming off of birth control, with smoothing out the period, with postpartum care. We have so many tools, so many things to help you feel yourself and to feel good about your period.
And that 5 element stuff too, I think is great for that. I mean, when Jennifer got off birth control, it was the strangest thing because she'd been feeling fine and all that stuff, and it was like whatever, but she was like, I don't want to be on this anymore. And when she stopped, about 3 or 4 weeks after she had stopped taking it, there was like a clarity in her energy field that we didn't even know wasn't right until it was gone. you know, and energetically and emotionally, I felt like we were able to get so much closer together.
Yeah.
But to the profound, you know, speaking of like a change of identity, you know, it's like her kind of relationship to herself was also shifting, and having that, you know, being able to do some acupuncture to support that kind of the unraveling or the detoxification process, while also bolstering like the inner destiny, you know, and that inner calling, and like accessing to the deeper levels of your jing and your essence of like, who are you and what are you meant to do, and how I mean, we're talking about birth control now, but this could easily be talking about antidepressants, right? Or any other medication.
Exactly.
You know, how have these things been coding and messing up your energy field and blocking ultimately what, you know, I care about, and I know you guys do too, which is like the proper unfolding of your destiny.
Exactly. Like all these things, they kind of become like dirt or soot on top of the light that we're meant to shine. And especially with 5-element acupuncture, the goal is really to start sounding that note. Like, this is you, remember? Let's sound that note. Let's sound it stronger. Let's vibrate this dust off of here. Let's get it out. You know, let's manifest this into the world.
I like that image.
Yeah.
It's just like this banging a gong, you know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's up to you what you do with that message, but I'm happy to ring that bell, you know?
Then don't fuck it up. I'll get you resonated. Don't screw it up.
Well, you know, we all have our journey, right? Yeah. We all have our bumps that we need to go through, our walking.
We love you no matter what choices you make.
It's true. And sometimes, you know, the path takes 5 years, and sometimes it takes 2 days, and sometimes it takes 5 lifetimes. So that's not up to me.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed getting to as I've gotten to know you is you seem to have, both you and Bart, this sort of what I would call kind of an unassuming presence. And then like once you're there, it's like I just feel like I'm in the presence of something very powerful. Yeah. But I love that, you know, he talked about kind of going under the radar.
Yeah.
But you both have a presence about you, and you especially, where you know, you keep touching your heart here as we're talking, and it's like I really love that heart-centered focus that you seem to be bringing to your life.
Yeah, I really have Sufism to thank for that so much. It just, like, the Sufis are such a heart-centered folk, and they may go astray other ways, as you know, everyone always does, but coming back to the heart and just keep coming back. We fall down, we come back to the heart. It just, you know, it's like, that's one of the things I really love about it, is like, yep, we're going to fall off the wheel. How do we get back there? Yeah. It's not about trying to maintain any kind of perfection. It's, we're going to fall down. We're going to stumble. We're going to fall in some holes. We're going to have some not so great days, but let's pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, pray for the help, and come back to our heart.
Yeah. I love that. My the coaching program that I've been doing is called Inviting in Love. And it's all about that. You know, I mean, the ultimate goal that I like to support people with is attracting a great partner, right? Because we know the value of resilience and lifespan, and, you know, all these things of having a great partnership. But, you know, I can't guarantee that they're going to find a great partner from working with me. But what I feel very confident in supporting them with is like, no, we're going to reconnect it to your heart, and I'm going to give you the guidance and the support to be able to reconnect and to come back faster than perhaps you've ever done that before. And from that place, you know, that's where it's like the multitudes become possible.
Yeah, it's true, because if you follow your heart, I mean, it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be what you think you want or you think you need. But I think it's the stuff that you never would have come up with on your own. It's the stuff that's amazing. It's the miracles. It's the openings, love. I mean, I don't know. It's just so beautiful to me.
You know, one of the things as I've practiced just mindfulness and you know, just trying to be still, is the amount of spontaneity that I've had to allow for. You know, it's like, and I grew up, I mean, I'm a wood element, right? So everything's just sort of really rigid. I followed, like, you know, I was like, you check the boxes. You go to the grade school, you do the things, you make the money, you do the things. And I've learned to develop a better relationship with spontaneity. Yeah. And to just be like, well, what might be possible here?
Yeah, and just open up to that, because, you know, we can get so stuck in dualistic thinking where it's like, it's either this or that. Actually, it might be something like 10 times more amazing even than that.
Yeah.
If we can open up to that possibility.
For sure. And that's where, you know, being able to just like check back in with yourself and to get that support. Because there's so many people that I talk to that don't know. They're like, I don't even know how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's if someone's out there who feels that way, certainly here in New York, like, you know, go to Acupuncture Williamsburg and like get tuned up here because, you know, it's like, it might just be a block that's preventing that internal insight, or, you know, something that's happening there where you can't quite tell, is your energy expanding or contracting?
Yeah.
And having the guides, like one of the things I love about how you impart practice is like you guys are in the room, you know, like I like to do. It's like you're in the room, you're there. It's not just needles and see it, you know. It's like, no, let's facilitate this unfolding.
Yeah. See how the energy is flowing or not flowing. Like when we put those needles in, like is, you know, what kind of presence are we in? Let's be part of this. Let's share this boat, like you said.
Yeah. Awesome. So how can the people find you and get in touch with you and all the things?
So you can book with us at acupuncturewilliamsburg.com. And we're setting up the emails right now. I think we still have info@acupuncturewilliamsburg.com. If you have any questions or the phone number, you can feel free to call us.
917-446-9868.
Yep. And please leave a message. If we're not able to get back to you right then, we will definitely get back to you as soon as possible.
They return phone calls.
Yes.
And listen to voicemails. I was like, don't leave a voicemail. Send me a text. Otherwise, you're dead to me. Yeah.
We'll respond to text messages as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Everybody, if you're here in Brooklyn and New York, even if you're visiting, go check them out at Acupuncture Williamsburg. You're in very capable hands, and I'm just so ecstatic to get to know you, and that to be able to leave New York knowing that my clients, not my clients, but the clients that I was in the boat with now have a new companion in their ride. So thank you so much. Listeners out there, thank you for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Well, thank you so much.